Hello everyone, let's have more news about the Miami Heat, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Heat projected to draft in-state star in latest NBA mock draft. The Miami Heat are poised to bolster their roster with a local talent in the 2025 NBA draft, according to Bleacher Report's latest mock draft projections following the NBA draft combine. With the 20th overall pick, the Heat are predicted to select Walter Clayton Jr., the dynamic guard from the University of Florida, whose stock has soared after a standout performance at the Combine. Clayton's selection could bring a spark to the Heat's backcourt, blending hometown pride with NBA-ready skills. Clayton, who led the Florida Gators to a national championship, showcased his scoring prowess and consistency at the Combine, earning comparisons to guards like Peyton Pritchard and Cole Anthony. His ability to create shots off the dribble, coupled with a reliable three-point stroke, makes him an ideal fit for Miami's culture of toughness and versatility. At 6'3", with a knack for clutch performances, Clayton's combine showing, highlighted by efficient scoring in scrimmages, has solidified his status as a late first-round prospect. For the Heat, drafting Clayton represents an opportunity to add a high-energy guard who can contribute immediately while developing alongside stars like Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo. His offensive brilliance and defensive tenacity align well with Eric Spoelstra's system, which values players who thrive under pressure. Fans on X are buzzing about the potential pick, with many excited about the in-state star staying home to represent Miami. As the 2025 NBA draft approaches, Clayton's rise underscores the Heat's knack for finding gems in the draft, setting the stage for an exciting future. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
Riley and Adam Simon were spotted at the Klutch Sports Pro Day this week, which is an indication that the Pat Riley, Miami Heat, and Rich Paul Klutch Sports beef was never really a thing. But it also is an indicator of some prospects in the NBA draft that Miami may be eyeing with that 20th overall pick. I want to start by saying this. I think it was all fun. It was jokes. It was all good to have the fun on Twitter and stuff, talking about Rich Paul and the Miami Heat's quote-unquote beef to where Riley wouldn't sign any Rich Paul agent or clients and wasn't really drafting him either. It's the reason why the Heat didn't draft Maxey in 2020. I don't think that was ever the case. And the idea that they won't deal with any Klutch Sports client or their Rich Paul in general, it's just ridiculous at this point, and it's a little far-fetched. It's not a real thing. And we're going to talk about some of these prospects that were at Klutch Sports Pro Day. But make sure you are following me over on Twitter for more Miami Heat coverage, whether it's draft talk, whether it's trade rumors, anything in between. We'll have you covered. Go give me a follow at Nick_Roloff. All right, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, though, is because there were a lot of top prospects at this Klutch Sports Pro Day. The six that come to mind here in terms of the biggest, and these weren't the only six there, but these were the biggest names. Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's, Walter Clayton from Florida, Kaman Malawach from Duke, Hanson Yang, a China big man, and then Will Riley from Illinois, and Adu Thiero from Arkansas. There are a couple prospects on this list that could be there with the 20th pick, which is why I think we have to talk about it. Now, Kaman Malawach is an absolute lock to go inside the top 10, so he is someone that, yeah, maybe the Miami Heat scout, get to know, blah, 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 just do your due diligence, but it's not a player that is even potentially in play at the 20th pick. But out of those six prospects we just talked about, four of them absolutely are. Those four being Rasheer Fleming, Walter Clayton Jr., Will Riley, and Adu Thiero from Arkansas. They could all be in play with the 20th pick. Hanson Yang, an intriguing high upside prospect, but he's someone likely going at the end of the first round at absolute peak, likely an early second rounder. But I wanted to go through a couple of the prospects. And one of the prospects that I have talked about at depth in the last 2 or 3 weeks about being a player that I want the Heat to take at 20. It's Rasheer Fleming, that's forward from St. Joe's, who comes in at 6'8" without shoes, 7'5" wingspan, a dominant play finisher who shot 66% at the rim this past season, but he's also just an absolute elite three-point shooter. He's got a quick high arc release that reminds me a lot of Michael Porter Jr. He shot 39% from three this past season after shooting 32 and 34 in his first two seasons in the Atlantic 10. He's also a very, very good defender that can guard 2 through 5, if we're going to be honest, due to his length, wingspan, physicality, and quick foot speed. Now, a couple negatives on him. Can't really put the ball on the deck and create, and he doesn't really look to get to the free throw line. His shot diet is either at the rim, throwing it down, or shooting threes off the catch. And that's just where he is right now, but he could develop into something else in terms of a playmaker and ball handler. You never know. He's one of my top guys. I ultimately think he won't be on the board for Miami at 20. Maybe I'm higher on him than most. I know there's been some people out there like Jonathan Gavoni of Draft Express to have him go in the 20s of his mock drafts. I think he'll go in the teens, maybe even late lottery, because that's how much I believe in his upside and his frame, but we'll ultimately see. Everyone knows how much I like Rasheer Fleming. A player that I want to discuss here is another player at that Klutch Sports Pro Day, someone I'm intrigued with, Adebayo, the wing from Arkansas, who I would argue is the most explosive athlete in this draft class. Like, I'm looking at the measurements right here in my scouting notes, 6'6" without shoes, 7-foot wingspan. He just flies to the rim. He reminds me a lot of the Thompson twins, if we're going to be honest. I put it in my notes here. I'm looking down at it. Might be the long-lost third brother of Ausar and Amen Thompson, because he slashes at a very elite rate. Ready for this? 97th percentile in dunks made, 91st percentile in shots at the rim made, 92nd percentile in non-paint twos made, so he really works in the mid-range and in. Also 93rd percentile on points per possession on cuts in the half court. Could play the dunker spot at a high level at the NBA. He's also a really good defender in terms of his ability to move his feet, stay in front, and defend, get his hands on balls. 3.4% steal rate and 2.9 block percentage. He is as athletic and good defensively as it comes. Now, the negatives with him is that he does not have a good jump shot whatsoever. 28% three-point shooter in his career, a 40% effective field goal percentage on catch-and-shoot opportunities, that beyond the arc as well as in the mid-range. That ranks in the 28th percentile. And when he drives to the rim, he can get to the rim and finish and draw fouls, but he can't create. When he goes to the rim, his head's down, it's a straight-line drive, and he is not someone who can adjust and find an open player if the defense collapses on him, at least as of now. But that's his early look at in terms of his scouting report. More prospect talk here in a second, but name a prospect that you want the Heat to draft. I won't say Adebayo is a player that I want Miami to take right now, but he is a player that if the Heat ultimately took, I could understand why, because you see the upside in players that you need in this NBA and the NBA playoffs of these wings that can get out in transition, that can defend, but name someone that you want the Heat to draft. Now, there are a couple prospects that I am not sold on. Two of them on that list that we just talked about from Klutch Sports Pro Day, that being Will Riley and Walter Clayton Jr. I want to stay away from Will Riley at all costs. I think he's a second-round type of player. That's the grade I have on him. I compared him to like a Monty Bates because he's such a thin frame, 6'8", 185. He has a negative wingspan. Well, let's say not. Well, yeah, you know what? It is negative because he's 6'8" and a quarter without shoes. So when he's got shoes on, he's about 6'10". His wingspan's 6'8" and 3/4. So he doesn't have a good wingspan. I don't think he is that good defensively. He's a below average athlete, only with a 32-inch max vert. If he fills out his frame, he can be solid, and he's a decent mid-range shooter because he's able to elevate on his jumper. Just not sold on him, and I don't like the Walter Clayton Jr. fit either. Yeah, I think he could be a solid, like, Peyton Pritchard, six-man point guard off the bench type of guy. But with that 20th pick, I'm looking for someone that can fill a long-term role in the Heat starting lineup. And if you're keeping Tyler Hero, I do not see Clayton Jr. fitting next to Tyler Hero. So those two are players I'm not really sold on. And then when you talk about some of the other guys at the Klutch Sports Pro Day, Hansen Yang and Kaman Malawach are not going to be in the Heat's draft range. But I did want to mention this because in LA, where the Klutch Sports Pro Day was, there was also another workout for some top prospects that the Miami Heat attended. This coming from Greg Sylvander. Shout out to him for the report. But the Heat attended Nick Clifford, Cedric Coward, Koby Brea, and Stefan Tadrajovic little workout in Los Angeles. And I am actually really intrigued with this list of prospects for a lot of different reasons. Neek is a player that I absolutely love. Cedric Coward is rising up my boards. Koby Brea is a player that I just am not shocked that the Miami Heat could really, really fall in love with. Stefan Tadrajovic, to be honest, I haven't done a lot of work on him to this point in the process, so I'm a little unfamiliar there. But we're going to talk about these three coming up in 1 second. But we are sponsored by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports app and platform I play every single day. And I need you to get started with me because it just makes watching sports even more fun. And as the basketball playoffs are coming to a close, don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. You can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine basketball with hockey, baseball, esports, golf, and much more. You can play daily, season long. How about series long, which is what I did here for the Pacers-Knicks series. I got more than Miles Turner points per game, more than Halliburton assists per game, and less than Karl-Anthony Towns rebounds per game. 3-player entry there, but you can have an entry that can get up to 2,000 times your cash. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, with that other list of prospects, let's start with Nick Clifford because to me, he would be an absolute no-brain selection for the Miami Heat if he's there at 20. I will make the claim right now. I don't know how the draft is going to go, right? Who goes in the lottery? Who goes before Miami? Clifford would be the person I would take immediately if he was there. I just think there's absolutely no world. He's just so good in so many different roles. I compare him to a blend of Marcus Smart and Josh Hart. Have a late lottery kind of grade on him. He finishes at the rim. He rebounds in traffic. He can play on ball. He can play off ball. The only knock on him is that he's an older prospect at 23 years old, but he's got a 6'8" wingspan, 6'5", can play the 2, can play the 3, is a starting caliber player year one and a playoff contributor right away as well. I would take Clifford without a question, but I don't think he will be there. But let's transition and let's talk some Cedric Coward, a player that has been rising up NBA draft boards and someone that we haven't really discussed that much here on the show. An absolute physical freak. Now, I called Aduthiero the most explosive athlete in this draft class, but I would put Cedric Coward up there in the top 5. A 6'5" and a quarter tall player without shoes, 7'2" wingspan. Are you shitting me? A +9 wingspan? Are we serious right here? That's unbelievable from Coward. He's got a lot of athleticism to him. He's a good defender, an offensive guy who just improved year after year. Now, the one little issue with Coward, and it's not an issue, but he didn't really get a lot of tick last season, and I'll explain why here in a second. But in the 6 games that he played for Washington State in the 24-25 season, he was dominant, scoring almost 18 a game, shooting a ridiculous efficient mark from the field. It's just unbelievable to see how well he played in the 6 games he did appear in for Washington State before he ultimately got hurt. And we'll talk about that injury here in a second. But make sure you are subscribed to the channel for daily Miami Heat content. And if you want the best Heat draft content there is on YouTube, this is the place for you. I do a lot of scouting, a lot of draft notes. I think of what's good for Miami, what's bad for the Heat, and we talk about it here. And we'll be live for draft night as well. So join the channel and subscribe today. All right, let's get to a Coward scouting report, if you will, because he is an absolute awesome mid-range scorer who utilizes his size. Ready for this? Shot 58.6% on his non-rim 2-pointers in those 6 games. So when he's not at the rim, he's in the paint, he's in the mid-range, shot 58.6%. Just unbelievably good. And he is someone who likes to get mismatches and utilizes his size. Is a 99th percentile guy when posting up. 1.66 points per possession when he posts up his defender. He is really good at getting to a spot in the mid-range. He's also a really good defender. 5.3 block percentage, is a good weak side defender who uses that 7'2" wingspan to its highest degree, but also is long in terms of getting in front, not letting you get by him, gets his hands on balls in the passing lanes. And I think he could be a secondary ball handler. He talked with Kevin O'Connor about that on a podcast. It was a great listen, how he's improving his handle, how he believes that's something he can do at the next level. And actually mentioned, no joke, the Miami Heat when talking about being like a secondary ball handler to a player like Tyler Hero, compared himself to Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And honestly, I agree with that comparison. I graded him out as a late lottery player. I am curious to see where he goes. Maybe it is lottery. Maybe it's just outside the lottery. Maybe it's in the 20s. But I comp him to Jalen Williams because he has that wing type of ability to where he can be that secondary ball handler that Jalen Williams is. Gets to a spot in the mid-range just like Jalen. Is a menace defensively. Now, the knock on him, he hasn't played a lot. He was at Eastern Washington before transferring to Washington State. Only played in 6 games, and he didn't really play high-level competition. The only high-level team that he played was Iowa, who is not a good Big Ten team last season, and he did struggle in that game a little bit. So there's a concern on that idea. And he did have a shoulder injury, torn labrum, that cost him the entire season, which is why he only played in 6 games. The question is that going to impact him long-term in his shot form? I don't know. But I'm intrigued by another player that was on that list that we just showed a couple minutes ago, Koby Brea, the guard/forward from Kentucky who originally spent time in the Atlantic 10 playing 4 years at Dayton University. His measurements are interesting because he has a negative wingspan. 6'5" and 3/4 height, 6'5" and a quarter wingspan. Weight is fine, but not like the most physical, imposing type of guy. But the reason why he's intriguing to me is because he is the best shooter in this NBA draft. And there really isn't a question about that, in my opinion. I think the 2 best shooters are Con Kneppel from Duke and Koby Brea here from Kentucky. He just was unbelievably good in his collegiate career at shooting the 3-point ball. I mean, look at these numbers. The first 4 years in the Atlantic 10, playing for Dayton, and then this past year was at Kentucky in the SEC. And you wondered how he was going to take that next step going from non-Power 4, Power 5 basketball to in the best conference in college basketball last year in the SEC with his shooting. It didn't really take a dip. He had an unreal final year at Dayton, shooting 50% from 3 on 6 attempts a night. And you're like, okay, let's see you do it at a higher level with higher competition in the SEC. And he did that. He kept the attempts the same off the bench for Mark Pope at Kentucky and shot 43.5%. He is a player I know Miami is really going to like due to his shooting ability, and with the Heat being rumored to move off of Duncan Robinson, the Heat may be able to see Koby Brea as a replacement for him off the bench as their movement shooter. Now, I will say this, he is not that good of a player outside of that shooting ability. Like, he can't really put the ball on the deck like that. I don't know how he will defend at the next level due to his lack of size and his lack of athleticism, which is why he's a second-round type of prospect, but someone who will likely go early in the second round, because if you could shoot like he can, you will find a role in the NBA. And I do want to remember, the Heat do not have a second-round pick. So if they wanted Brea, they would have to hope and pray he'd be a UDFA, which he would not be. But they could also buy a second-round pick. What does that mean? Well, in the NBA, you can trade for a second-round pick on draft night with cash considerations, which means you could just flat out buy a draft slot in the second round if you would like. And maybe that's something Miami may want to do if they ultimately move on from Duncan Robinson and view Koby Brea as a replacement. And I'll give my thoughts on it here in a second. But should the Heat buy a second-round pick in this draft class? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I'm going to say, honestly, probably not. I wouldn't buy a second-round pick. And you might ask why. Well, here's a couple of reasons. One, the Heat's roster could see a lot of turnover, yes, but at least right now, it's full. Like, it's got 14 players on it. And you're allowed to have 15, but it's got 14 guys on standard contracts for this upcoming season. So unless they make a lot of trades or moves before the draft to free up some roster spots, there would be no point of adding a second-round player, especially when you add a first-round pick with the 20th overall selection. I will also make this point. Like, this draft is not going to be very good in the second round. Sure, I'd be intrigued with Koby Brea, but with a lot of players going back to school in the new NIL, what you have in this draft class is a ton of lottery, like high-end talent, young guys, true freshmen or true sophomores, mixed with international prospects, mixed with guys that have ran out of eligibility at the college level. Like, that's kind of where we are. So we're going to see a massive talent drop-off in the second round. Like, I just don't think draft classes are that deep into round 2 anymore due to the disparity of first round, like, one-and-done guys, young, high-upside prospects, international guys, and then 5-year players that run out of college eligibility, like a Janai Broom, like a Koby Brea, like those type of guys. Those are going to fill up the second round, but they don't really have a lot of upside in the NBA. So I don't know if I'm in on buying a second-round pick for a lot of different reasons, just those being a few. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Long video. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us here on Draft Talk. I can't help myself. I just go way too in-depth on these prospects when we talk about them. Hit that sub button for daily Miami Heat content. And I told you, got the best Heat draft content on YouTube, and hopefully you guys agree with me after this video.
So we're missing out on first-team All-Rookie, no All-Defense for the first time this decade for Bam Adebayo. Which one do you have a bigger problem with, David?
I could see the argument for keeping Khalil off the first team. It's leaving Bam off. And I think it's such an indictment on the voting process. And I mean, we've gone through this every time with a Defensive Player of the Year selection. And I know that it's impossible, even as a media member ourselves, it's impossible to watch basketball all the time and to see all the nuances of every team. There's just too much. We try. I think we do a pretty good job. And yet I'll be the first to admit that neither of us is perfect. And that being the case, I know we're going to get some things wrong on occasion, but they totally botched this. Like, this team would have been abysmal. They were bad, but they would have been abysmal without Bam Adebayo and his defensive presence. And I think it's just such a reflection of what they thought this season was for Miami. It's like, well, they were a playing team. They weren't very good. And, they weren't a top defense and et cetera, et cetera. It's like, did you see the crap show that this season was and the drama with Jimmy Butler and everything else and trying to incorporate new players and trying to play consistent defense? It would have been impossible for any other player to do so. And I'm not saying Bam deserves to be recognized as the Defensive Player of the Year. I will admit that this probably was his worst season in some time, probably because he just saw the writing on the wall and he was like, you know what, I'm not going to – there's no point. There's no point in me even trying to angle for the Defensive Player of the Year award. It's just not going to happen. But he was still one of the top 5 defenders in the NBA this season, and I think that he should have been recognized as such.
So I want to be clear. I had almost exactly this first team and second team, but I had Bam on my second team. Most years he's an automatic first team. That's who Bam is. But it was a down year for even Bam.
Yep.
I think that I think voters did hold Miami's struggles, weird season against him. I think they also weirdly held his slow offensive start against him.
Yeah.
Because he just was sort of eliminated out of the award conversation. And everybody's, Bam's having a down year. Yeah, offensively, for the first half of the season, he was having a down year. Defensively, it was always the same. I mean, it wasn't his... He had no business being the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, which he's usually in. It was a notch below that. But even it being a notch below that is still really damn good. And that's where I think things got lost. The first team, I might as well just tell the listeners what the all-defensive teams were. First team was Evan Mobley, Dyson Daniels, Lou Dort, Draymond Green, Amen Thompson. I had no issue with that. It's exactly my first team on my fake ballot. I have the exact same team. Second team was Ivica Zubac, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Williams, Tamani Kamara, and Rudy Gobert. I had almost the exact same second team. I had Zubac, Kamara, Jalen Williams, Jaren Jackson Jr., and instead of Gobert, I had Bam. I don't think My question wasn't Gobert or Bam. My question was Jaren Jackson Jr. or Gobert. And I don't know why Jaren Jackson Jr. got off scot-free on this. He didn't have a great defensive season either.
Definitely.
But he had a better offensive season than Bam, and it shouldn't matter in the all-defensive awards, but apparently that stuff does. You looked at Miami. They finished the regular season 9th in defensive rating. Memphis finished 11th. It's not like the Grizzlies had this great defense. Miami's defense was better. And I would argue Memphis has more defensive talent outside of their star big man than Miami does. And so, I mean, when you think about guys like Jalen Wells, all those forwards that they got, Desmond Bane out on the perimeter, the centers that they have, Brandon Clark before he got hurt, even having Zach Edey in there, he was a full-time starter. Kel'el Ware took a little bit longer to get into the rotation. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, Jaren Jackson Jr. has the fouling problems. He's not a great rebounder. Why exactly did he get in over Bam? And that was my biggest thing. That was my thing. It was Jackson or Gobert for me. I ended up going with Jackson, but I actually didn't feel good about it, and I kind of regret it. I feel like I should have probably gone Gobert over Jackson, but yeah, I think it's a problem. I do want to talk about all rookie here in a second, but before we do that, today's One More Thing is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. The Knicks are 6-point favorites tonight against the Pacers in Game 2. Little bit too much for me. I have no idea how this series is going to go based off of Game 1. But if you like the Pacers to win, I would take the money line at plus 200. I also like Karl-Anthony Towns at plus 118 to score at least 25 points. He's averaged more than 30 points per game against the Pacers in the regular season and the playoffs. That feels like it's a given. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's get to the all-rookie teams that were announced earlier this week. First team, Stephon Castle, Zachary Rizachet, Jalen Wells, Zach Edey, and Alex Sarr. Second team was Kel'el Ware, Matez Buzelis, Yves Missi, Donovan Clingan, and Bub Carrington. Kel'el Ware got the most votes out of anybody on second team. He was 10 first-place votes behind Alex Sarr. Sarr was the second pick in the draft. Ware was the 15th pick in the draft. I don't really have a problem with it. Sarr's production was there. The efficiency was not. I think you could have argued Ware over Sarr. I think you could have argued Ware over Edey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised that he had that many first-place votes, and by far the most first-place votes out of anybody on the second team. He had 44 first-place votes. The second most was Buzelis at 15. So I think he's like the sixth man of the first team. It kind of feels like.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like we had that conversation when we were talking at all rookie teams, and it felt like kind of the same place too. So I mean, I think we both got that one right. I think Edey, the name recognition, I think really helped his case, and he was solid. He wasn't like bad as a rookie, and so I think that's basically the only way that it could be held against you, that you don't make the first team, is if you're really truly astoundingly bad as a rookie, and that wasn't the case. Like, he had his problems, but at the same time,
so much of it is just like playing time too. Mm-hmm. For a rookie. It's just like, oh, you got on the court, congrats. Like, that's hard.
Yeah, you got on the court, you put up some numbers. Hey, you know what? Let's reward you. Yeah. Sarr, I think that's more questionable, but again, since a high draft pick, you're probably going to tend to say, oh, well, look at those numbers, and he's a second overall pick. Yeah, I get it. Let's put him on the first team. Although I don't think it's any case. Like, he wasn't even looter in a riot type statistics. He was just like, he was okay on a really, really bad Washington team, and everybody was like, yeah, he's got some potential there. So, I think by far Ware was the more impactful player, and he certainly had some nice moments for Miami as a rookie, and he probably was more deserving to be the first team over Alex Sarr, but that's okay. It's I don't think ultimately it matters. And you know what? Moreover, I hope it pisses him off and it inspires him, and he winds up using this as motivation, because we know that that's what NBA players do. And so if that's the case, I'm all for it.
Every time he plays Sarr,
Yeah.
Every time he plays Sar or Edey, he could get a little bit more. I mean, he's like, first of all, these guys were drafted over me, and then they got chosen first team all over me. When this was announced, I saw the complaint, oh my God, Eric Spoelstra cost Khalil Ware a chance to make first team all rookie. And my response to that is, who cares?
Yeah.
I know we're doing a segment on it, but who cares about these all rookie teams? Nobody cares about these all rookie teams. Rookie of the year is a legitimately cool reward, but nobody cares about the difference between being first team or second team. Nobody remembers, oh my God, that guy was like.
I couldn't remember who was on the team last year. Can you?
No, I couldn't. I couldn't tell you the 5. I couldn't tell you the 10. I couldn't tell you. I said it kind of facetiously, but it is a legit accomplishment to get on the court as a rookie. And if you play a lot of minutes, you're probably going to make one of these teams. It's sort of
the one thing the Heat can offer Kevin Durant that the Suns and Nets couldn't. Kevin Durant hasn't played under a fantastic infrastructure since his Larry O'Brien raising days in Golden State. That can change if he joins the Miami Heat this summer. From the top down, the Warriors were a first-class organization with a proven coach and defensive system that matched their lethal offense. The Heat don't have the offensive firepower, but they green-check those other 2 boxes with precision. The offense would improve tenfold with Durant. Since departing from the Bay in 2019, Durant has yet to be paired with an organization that offered the luxuries Golden State did. Steve Kerr can be criticized like all, but we can't ignore that he's a winner. He's done it as a player and coach. Kerr's time in Golden State coincides with Hall of Fame talent in Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Andre Iguodala, a sneaky Hall of Fame candidate. This Avengers-studded roster admittedly was stacked, but they always had elite defenses that didn't get the credit they deserved. Green is one of the best defenders of his generation, like Bam Adebayo, but it was Kerr who allowed Green to create havoc as a small ball 5. Kerr devised innovative ways to hide Curry on defense, though he was always a willing defender. Adding KD to the nucleus made them one of the most dominant teams in NBA history. Durant's greatness under that infrastructure bored fans because the championship was decided in September. If you appreciated the roster for what it was, you'd realize Durant made great strides as a defender, and it paid dividends throughout those seasons. In Miami, Durant could lean back into those strengths in an organization that appreciates them. He's still a plus on the defensive end, but it's been less magnified due to his team's circumstances. Durant has worn Brooklyn Nets and Phoenix Suns threads since his Warriors departure. Neither franchise had the right coach. The Nets experiment was a disaster as soon as the team let go of Kenny Atkinson. Atkinson and the Cleveland Cavaliers got bounced early in the playoffs, but he did an impressive job leading this Cavs roster to 64 wins. Steve Nash was hired as a first-time head coach. Things didn't work out as unforeseen circumstances led to the team relying on Durant to do everything. KD is capable of that, but that's not his intention. He won't need to do that in Miami. Jacques Vaughn was the coach in Brooklyn before Durant moved to the Suns in 2023. The defensive culture never materialized under either coach. You'd think Phoenix would have been a perfect landing spot with the combination of talent and seemingly a great coach in Monty Williams. That train went nowhere, and Williams was replaced by Frank Vogel in 2024. A defensive-minded coach who's a champion is a great hire, right? But he didn't mesh with the players, and the Suns' defense was only slightly positive. He was out. The Suns hired another defense-first championship winner to steer the ship. Mike Budenholzer's season went as poorly as possible, and he's already been fired. You see the theme here. There's no consistency for these franchises Durant has laced up for since Golden State. That starts from the top. Durant can count on the stability of Eric Spoelstra if he's a member of the Miami Heat. And you, fan, what do you think about Kevin Durant's situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.